Danny DeVito's name has been synonymous with laughter for decades. Those short, stocky frames, that cheeky grin, and that unmistakable raspy voice that launched 1,000 punchlines. But on his 80th birthday, a different story unfolds. One that slyly contradicts the jovial persona we know so well. Beneath the rounds of applause and standing ovations, fans are whispering, "Is Danny DeVito really okay?" In a world that insists on viewing him as a perpetual comic relief, the truth is far more complicated. At 80 years old, he's retreating into solitude, trading studio sets for the echoing halls of an empty Hollywood mansion, and trading the warmth of family dinners for quiet dinners for one. Born November 17, 1944, in the working-class neighborhood of Neptune Township, New Jersey, Daniel Michael DeVito Jr. learned early that life could be unforgiving. His mother, Julia, and his father, Daniel Sr., raised 5 children between factory shifts and stained linoleum floors. As Danny, the 5th child, watched siblings blossom and pursue promising paths, he discovered that his shorter stature and voice, then more nasal than gravelly, made him stand out in ways he hadn't wanted. Yet, at UPS College, he fell in love with theater and found that the stage would accept every inch of him. His big break came in 1975 when Martin Scorsese cast him as the sleazy cab driver Louis De Palma in Taxi. Overnight, Danny became the king of biting one-liners and sharp glares. He won a Golden Globe, an Emmy, and the adoration of a generation craving flawed heroes. Directors like Tim Burton and Joe Dante tapped into DeVito's knack for blending humor with pathos. Movies like Throw Mama from the Train and Romancing the Stone relied on his ability to pivot between clownish buffoonery and heartbreaking vulnerability in the blink of an eye. Yet for as much as Hollywood embraced him, Danny never fully shed the weight of his upbringing. Rumor has it that estrangement from his older brother, Joey, still haunts him. Joey died young, and Danny has seldom spoken of the gap left by his siblings' absence. The laughter on screen often masked a private ache, a sense that every joke leapt from survival tactics honed in a house where money was tight and hugs were rare. In 1982, Danny married Rhea Perlman, his Taxi co-star and the love of his life. Their 2 daughters, Lucy and Grace, became the center of his universe, a bright anchor against his backstage blues. For a while, the DeVito-Perlman household was Hollywood's most enviable. Witty banter over breakfast, impromptu family skits in the living room, and dinners woven with laughter. But as his fame soared, so did the demands on his time. Shooting on location became less about the art and more about bankable paychecks, and Danny found himself carved into fragments. The father, the husband, the movie star, never comfortably the whole man. By 2012, whispers of marital strain swirled. Rhea and Danny announced a separation that stunned fans. They insisted it was amicable, that love remained intact, but divorce papers followed a few years later. Reporters spoke of long, tearful nights in hotel rooms where Danny would wander the hallways at 3 a.m., clutching a half-empty whiskey bottle like a lifeline. Though they reunited briefly, photo ops of hand-in-hand strolls offering hope, those glances lacked the spark from early days on the Malibu sands. At 80, Danny lives alone in a sleek Los Angeles home brimming with memories, but lacking the daily chaos of 2 bright, curious girls underfoot. Health concerns have crept in, too. Spotted with a thin frame and hooded eyes, DeVito recently canceled a cameo appearance on a hit streaming series, citing a respiratory issue that needed rest and recovery. Fans remembered his youth when he chain-smoked cigarettes on set. Now the cough haunts him like an unwanted echo. Though he refuses to confirm rumors of emphysema or lingering cardiovascular strain, those closest say he's slowing down, not by choice, but because his body insists upon it. Contrast this with the Danny DeVito of 1988, wrestling a gremlin puppet, howling at the moon, buoyant and unstoppable. Then, the man thrived on camaraderie, on the roar of a live audience. Today, he tiptoes through echoing rooms, the only applause coming from the dusty frames on his mantle. A framed photo of him grinning with Tim Burton, years younger, feels like a portal to another lifetime, one in which every moment buzzed with possibility. Yet for all the glum whispers, a glimmer of hope lingers. Reports say that every Monday afternoon, Danny invites up-and-coming actors to his home for mock auditions, offering advice in that gravelly drawl, proof that mentorship still stirs his spirit. He's been seen sketching characters in a leather-bound notebook, his pencil strokes precise and inventively twisted, suggesting a mind still brimming with ideas, even if the stage lights no longer beckon him. On the eve of turning 80, Danny DeVito stands at a crossroads, between the laughter that built his legend and the quiet that now envelopes him. Behind the grizzled exterior lies a man wrestling with regrets, lost connections, health scares, and the gaping absence of family life once so full. But within that same frame beats the heart of a survivor, a performer born from neglect and shaped by grit, still capable of plucking humor from the void. Every morning, a soft light leaks through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Danny DeVito's sleek Los Angeles villa, illuminating a space filled more with silence than applause. His morning ritual begins in a minimalist kitchen where stainless steel countertops glint under a single pendant lamp. Instead of a bustling family breakfast, there's only the hiss of the espresso machine and the soft clink of a teaspoon as he stirs cocoa powder into oat milk. He perches at a granite breakfast bar, sipping methodically, scrolling through unread email alerts, fan letters still pouring in, but no one to share the excitement aloud. In this solitary calm, the comedic spark wrestles with solitude. Danny's mind races for punchlines while his heart presses pause on laughter. After that quiet start, he retreats to a home office lined with shelves bearing scripts spanning 5 decades, from early taxi drafts to modern indie comedies. He pulls down a dog-eared copy of a 1978 screenplay for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a reminder of the film he turned down, haunted by self-doubt in the shadow of Robin Williams. Sliding into a leather chair, he lights a candle scented like a Monterey pine forest and opens the notebook he carries everywhere. There, in hasty scrawls, are character ideas, a grizzled shoeshine man who dispenses life lessons, a retired magician grappling with vanishing dreams, an emotionally battered talk show host seeking one last laugh. Each concept pulses with potential, yet the pages remain unfilmed, a testament to both creative vigor and cautious hesitation. Midday, DeVito dresses in reflexive black, a well-worn tee, dark jeans, and the scuffed boots he's favored since the taxi days. He slips out through a side gate into the sprawling garden, where manicured lawns ripple around a modern sculpture of stacked film reels. Occasionally, he's spotted there alone, practicing dramatic poses in front of a full-length mirror mounted on a stone plinth. The mirror's reflection reveals a man half lit by sunlight, half cast in shadow, literal proof of the dichotomy inside him. Neighbors whisper that he's rehearsing lines for an unannounced project, while tabloids suggest he's merely passing time. The truth lies somewhere between. He's both yearning for creative expression and paralyzed by the weight of his legacy. As afternoon light shifts, Danny calls his longtime trainer for a private session. Even at 80, he insists on maintaining strength, though his routines have softened from plyometric jumps to steady balance exercises and gentle yoga flows. He moves deliberately, each flex and twist reminding him that mortality can be a slow unspooling of strength. His trainer notes the tremor in Danny's hands when he reaches overhead, attributing it to age more than past cigarette damage. Although Danny laughs off any suggestion of weakness, trading on a persona forged in slapstick, behind closed doors he frets over health markers, fascinated and unnerved by the daily shifts in stamina. When evening beckons, an assistant arrives with a curated stack of scripts under consideration for adaptation. A dark comedy about a con artist posing as a magician, a family drama set in a small Italian restaurant, a sci-fi spoof that parodies nostalgia. Danny sifts through pages with narrowing eyes, marking passages with a fountain pen. He pauses at an emotional monologue written for an older character's reunion, his breath catching on a line about relying on strangers when friends have gone. It's a line so filled with catharsis that Danny makes a small circle around it and writes, "Need this role." Yet the hesitation returns. Is he ready to share 2024's rawness with another audience? Or will it leave him too exposed? Night descends, and he retreats upstairs to a home screening room, a plush reclining seat at its center. Bottles of water flank a small side table where he places a single packet of microwave popcorn. He cues classic work, scenes from Twins or the Hagfish video cameos, and laughs at his younger self, exuberant and alive. Each chuckle coexists with a pang of nostalgia, like recalling a childhood friend who moved away. Afterward, he switches to a new indie pilot, evaluating how an actor half his age handles moral complexity. Sometimes he texts a quick note of praise to casting directors. Other times he shakes his head, thinking, I could do that better. Finally, before turning in, Danny reaches for his phone, scrolling through messages from old colleagues. A group chat titled Perlman and DeVito still exists, though unread messages outnumber responses. Every few nights, he taps out a short joke, a digital olive branch, but often deletes it before sending, afraid of intrusion. He closes his eyes, imagining Ria's response, the warmth of shared laughter and the gentle teasing that once defined their union. Then he sets the phone aside, exhales, and slips beneath the covers, leaving the screen's glow to fade into darkness. In that quiet moment, the dual realities of his life converge. The celebrated actor whose every creased smile is immortalized on celluloid, and the octogenarian navigating an unlit corridor of solitude. Tomorrow, he'll rise again to write new characters, review scripts, and maintain his carefully preserved health. He'll slip back into the ritual of solitude punctuated by echoes of laughter recorded long ago, knowing that while the stage lights have dimmed, the machinery of his creative spirit remains intact, even if it hums in isolation. Late at night, when the city settles into a hush and the Academy Awards reels fall silent on cable channels, Danny DeVito often finds himself wandering the marble floors of his villa as though retracing every step he's ever taken. Portraits hang on the walls, black and white stills of him in his 20s, wide-eyed and brimming with possibility. One shot captures that first taxi table read, his brow furrowed in concentration, unaware that millions would soon cradle his every quip. Another frame shows him alongside Ria, arms entwined and laughter frozen in time. Under the glow of chandeliers, Danny advances from snapshot to snapshot, a lone traveler moving through the milestones of a life lived in frames. In these solitary peregrinations, the glamour of Hollywood feels distant, replaced by the gravity of memory. He recalls the ecstatic roar of crowds, the thrill of improvising lines that crackled like live grenades, the electric camaraderie of working with directors who saw past his height to the wellspring of humanity he carried. Yet as he reaches for the doorknob of an empty guest room, once occupied by a giggling daughter or an adoring co-star, his reflection in its glass pane fractures his bravado. In the separation from Ria and the grown children who now send infrequent birthday texts, Danny confronts a truth no standing ovation can erase. Time both bestows and steals. Some nights, he retreats to a high-backed armchair by the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves where he stores candescent first editions of Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller. He tucks a blanket around his knees and opens a wine-stained copy of A Streetcar Named Desire, underscoring passages about desire, regret, and the fragile shells we inhabit. In the margins, he jots single words: vulnerability, costume, mask, reminders that his own character work required donning facades that, over decades, blurred into his self. On the coffee table, a small stack of letters from fans arrives daily, handwritten notes that unfold into stories of how his performances provided solace in loneliness or spurred courage in adversity. He reads each one twice, tears sometimes blurring the ink, and answers only a select few, aware that too many replies would dilute the sincerity of each personal gesture. Philanthropy offered Danny a bridge back to connectivity. For years, he quietly funded community theaters in New Jersey, underwriting production costs so that young actors from underserved neighborhoods could discover their voices. On a sun-bleached afternoon in Asbury Park, he once slipped into a local play where he donated the stage lighting, sitting unnoticed until his entrance in a minor role earned a burst of gasps and applause. He stayed afterward in the world beyond celebrity, hugging teenagers who thanked him for making theater accessible. Those fleeting moments revived something primal in Danny, the joy of shared laughter, of community forged in vulnerability. But as health concerns have mounted, mild strokes whispered about in tabloid footnotes, a bout of pneumonia that nearly confined him to ICU, Danny has grown cautious, limiting public appearances to televised interviews edited for brevity. "I'm fine," he insists in that gravelly timbre he's honed like an instrument. Yet close friends describe the private discharge of anxiety, heart palpitations in empty auditoriums, flashbacks to hospital corridors. He's learned to distrust the veneer of control, realizing that life's punchlines can suddenly vanish, leaving only the stunned silence that follows an unexpected twist. Contrast colors his days as vividly as any film set. He lives amidst sunken gardens and six-figure sculptures, yet he once fled a swanky fundraiser to finish a handwritten letter to a struggling young actor he barely knows. He's commanded spotlights next to De Niro and Jackson, but he craves the hush of studios where he can animate puppets for Nick Park's next Wallace and Gromit short. He's old enough to know that legacy can calcify into myth or crumble under the weight of neglect, so he oscillates between grand gestures, like underwriting a cinematic museum wing, and intimate outreach, like arranging voice lessons for aspiring performers who can't afford them. Romantic love, he confesses, remains a riddle. He looks back on Rio with unabashed gratitude, yet acknowledges the wounds of separation that never fully healed. Late-night phone calls between them became lifelines, but as schedules diverged, distance widened. He's attempted new connections, a whispered flirtation with a playwright at a book launch, a tentative dinner date with a former co-star, only to cede to self-protection when emotional proximity threatened to unsettle his carefully defended solitude. In those aborted reconnections, Danny glimpsed the cost of opening his heart again, inviting vulnerability where control once reigned supreme. Yet hope flickers in unexpected corners. Reports circulate of a collaboration with an Italian director on a neo-noir short film where Danny would play a retired detective haunted by vanished friends. It's the kind of role he's longed for, a character weighty with regret, yet seeking redemption. He's visited the Venice set twice, leaning on a cane but cracking jokes that reveal the same spark that lit his Taxi debut. Production halted momentarily when his oxygen levels dipped, but on his 8th decade, Danny refuses to retire from his craft. "As long as the cameras roll," he quips, "I'll find a way to stand on my own 2 feet." Meanwhile, his daughters have become more present, inspired by letters he sent during their teenage years praising their creativity over grades. Lucy's a theater director in Chicago. Grace composes music in New York. Though both have carved lives independent of their father's fame, they return for milestone birthdays, filling the house with laughter that echoes through its polished corridors. These family reunions are marvels of controlled chaos. Pillow fights in the guest rooms, impromptu foot rubs over dinner tables, and the occasional joint viewing of old Taxi bloopers with tears and laughter in equal measure. In those brief windows, Danny remembers what it felt like to belong fully to something larger than himself. At 80, Danny DeVito lives in the tension between what has been lost and what still beckons. Each morning brings the possibility of a sharp new idea, the promise of rekindled family bonds, the chance to perform once more under lights that chase away shadows. Each night reminds him of the solitude that clings like a second skin, the quiet ache of unspoken regrets. Yet in the deepest folds of his being, he knows that melancholy and mirth are inseparable dance partners, each giving meaning to the other. These ventures feed into a master plan to redefine Danny DeVito's legacy not as the perpetual joker, but as a cultural polymath who bridges film, television, theater. He's built an ecosystem where every touchpoint, monologues, podcasts, themed dinners, craft beer, feels like an invitation into his living room. They're not just buying access to a star. They're joining an exclusive fellowship guided by one of Hollywood's most enduring misfits. In the echo of his own footsteps through empty halls, Danny DeVito convenes with his creative impulses, harnessing isolation to forge new collaborations across continents. Paradoxically, his solitude has become a wellspring of connectivity, fueling a series of digital initiatives that blend the intimacy of darkened theaters with the reach of global streaming platforms. At the heart of this effort lies Monologue Monday, a weekly live broadcast on Instagram where Danny unveils an unrehearsed piece, sometimes a whimsical character sketch, other times a reflective soliloquy on mortality. Fans tune in dutifully at 8 p.m. Pacific, their screens alight with anticipation as his silhouette materializes against a bookshelf backdrop. The contrast between his theatrical gravitas and the casual setting underscores a raw vulnerability that resonates far deeper than any scripted appearance. These 15-minute sessions are punctuated by impromptu Q&A interludes, during which viewers submit questions via chat. What scares you most about turning 80? How do you cope with regret? Danny answers each with unexpected candor, admitting fears of irrelevance and confessing that he misses theatrical camaraderie. He jokes about stockpiling Tic Tacs to maintain breath control and shares a fleeting memory of Rhea's laugh in a long-gone kitchen. By the time he signs off with his trademark grin, fans feel an almost palpable closeness, as though they've had tea with a dear eccentric uncle rather than watched a Hollywood titan. Buoyed by this reception, Danny expanded his digital repertoire to include a short-form podcast series titled DeVito After Dark. Released every Thursday, these 10-minute episodes spotlight unscripted conversations between Danny and erstwhile co-stars like Bette Midler and Billy Crystal. They swap war stories of divided dressing rooms and petulant directors, but also riff on the joys of advancing age, fumbling lines, rediscovered hobbies, and the sweet relief of no longer caring about box office numbers. These candid exchanges tap into universal truths, facing mortality with laughter, choosing authenticity over pretense, and embracing eccentricity as a source of strength. To amplify the sense of exclusivity, each podcast installment drops only on a niche audio app requiring a one-time invitation code. Listeners scramble for shares and retweets, turning the show into a coveted club where only those in the DeVito After Dark know the password. This FOMO-driven approach sends subscription requests soaring and cements Danny's status as not just a performer, but a curator of intimate cultural experiences. Merchandise followed: limited edition enamel pins shaped like his cargo shorts-clad silhouette, and dark roast with DeVito coffee blends that play back episode snippets when scanned with a smartphone camera. Meanwhile, Danny has scaled up his selective public appearances to include themed pop-up screenings at art house cinemas. Dinner with Danny events pair a curated film, often his own underrated indie projects, with a four-course meal inspired by his mother's New Jersey kitchen. Local chefs recreate her pasta sauce recipe, complete with homemade meatballs and garlic bread. Attendees dine with flickering candlelight as Danny appears on a discreet livestream, greeting guests with heartfelt welcome and sharing behind-the-scenes anecdotes. Each ticket package is capped at 200 seats, fueling a scramble for reservations and generating a waiting list longer than the Golden Globe red carpet. In parallel, he's collaborated with a boutique microbrewery to launch DeVito's Dramedy Ale, a stout infused with hints of espresso and smoked oak. The beer label features a caricature of Danny brandishing a foam-covered mustache, and each six-pack comes with a scannable QR code granting exclusive access to a virtual masterclass on comedic timing. Buyers partake in a 2-hour Zoom event where Danny, perched in his home bar, wearing vintage suspenders, dissects scenes from Throw Mama from the Train. The result is more than merchandise. It's a multi-sensory immersion that blends taste, viscerality, and professional insight. Cinematic retrospectives have also re-emerged as a key element in Danny's renaissance. He curated a dozen-city DeVito in Retrospect film festival, transforming neglected theaters into archives of his work. Each screening is prefaced by a pre-recorded monologue in which Danny shares personal reflections, the life lesson gleaned from filming Tin Men. The moment he realized Trumbo would be his most transformative role to date, the secret cameo in Batman Returns that nearly went unnoticed. After seeing ticket sales spike and concession stands clear out, even skeptical distributors acknowledge the draw of nostalgia refined by self-aware curation. In the next phase of his strategic rollout, Danny DeVito's team harnessed the power of data analytics to monitor audience engagement across every channel. By tracking view durations on Monologue Monday, they pinpointed exactly when viewers' attention waned, often around the 15-minute mark, and trimmed subsequent sessions to 12 minutes of storytelling followed by a 3-minute Q&A. Heat maps of social media reactions revealed which stories sparked the most emotional outpouring. Recollections of late-night phone calls to Rhea and memories of neighborhood theater workshops consistently outperformed Hollywood war stories. Armed with these insights, writers restructured upcoming monologues to open with high-emotion hooks, an abandoned dinner table, the echo of a child's laughter, and close-on notes of cautious optimism. This data-driven refinement transformed each live broadcast into a lean, potency-packed experience that left fans craving more. Simultaneously, Danny dove deeper into global strategic partnerships that magnified his reach while reinforcing his core narrative of vulnerability and creativity. In Japan, a limited pop-up gallery called DeVito Noir opened in Tokyo's Daikanyama district, showcasing film stills reimagined as manga panels. Each exhibit piece came with a QR code granting access to an exclusive voice note of Danny reading the scene's backstory. In Berlin, a micro-theater company produced a stage adaptation of one of his unused monologues, performed by local talent but introduced by a pre-recorded video of Danny himself unpacking the piece's emotional roots. These cross-cultural activations tapped into FOMO by capping attendance at 100 per city and posting daily sold-out alerts that fueled ticket hunt fervor worldwide. On the digital frontier, Danny's team launched a series of non-fungible token (NFT) collectibles designed to cement his position at the intersection of nostalgia and innovation. Each NFT drop featured a hand-drawn caricature from Danny's personal sketchbook, an aging director barking affectionate action. Hughes, a cartoon shoeshine boy dispensing life advice, a grizzled detective disconnected from time. Buyers who secured these limited tokens received more than digital art. They gained voting rights in selecting monologue topics for future episodes and early access to audition tapes for his neo-noir short. Secondary market activity soared, with resale values climbing 300% on average, and the collectible frenzy drove unprecedented traffic to Danny's custom platform, where fans discovered additional behind-the-scenes content and peer-to-peer discussion forums. Philanthropy remained the emotional backbone of every initiative. Beyond underwriting community theater, Danny's foundation quietly funded creative grants for senior citizens, and homage to the second acts he pursued at 80. Grant recipients shared videos of rekindled passions, a former nurse producing a one-woman play, a retired teacher filming a short comedy about school reunions, a widower forming a ukulele band. Danny spotlighted these winners in his weekly newsletter, weaving their stories into his own narrative of resilience. The authenticity of these charitable efforts bolstered public trust, countering any doubts raised by earlier financial controversies. Social impact reports published quarterly detailed exactly how every dollar was spent: 40% on grants, 30% on administrative support for small theaters, 20% on mentorship programs, and 10% on content production, demonstrating rigorous stewardship that resonated with conscientious donors. All these tactics converged in a capstone event, Danny DeVito, a retrospective reimagined, a hybrid festival taking place simultaneously in Los Angeles, London, and Sydney. Each location synchronized programming via live satellite link. Panel discussions led by Danny himself, broadcast virtually to global audiences. Immersive VR booths reconstructing his childhood Neptune Township home, and intimate workshops where fans could practice monologues under the guidance of up-and-coming actors mentored by Danny. Merchandise booths sold exclusive festival anthologies, coffee table books blending rare photographs with personal annotations and behind-the-scenes anecdotes. The festival's scarcity amplified demand. 1,200 tickets sold out in under 4 hours, while over 10,000 virtual passes snapped up within a week. Throughout every activation, the narrative arc stayed true to Danny's central theme: the coexistence of joy and melancholy, of isolation and connection. Metrics confirmed what his heart already knew. An audience that once consumed his cameo performances now invested emotionally in his ongoing journey. Engagement rates on new content consistently outperformed legacy clips, and sentiment analysis revealed a 95% positive reaction to each strategic pivot. Industry observers hailed it as a case study in modern legacy stewardship, how a veteran actor could transcend typecasting by blending heartfelt storytelling, cutting-edge tech, and community building. By the end of Danny DeVito, a retrospective reimagined, every strategic initiative had crystallized into a cohesive legacy ecosystem that honored his past while staking a claim on the future. Data dashboards glowed with metrics. Livestream viewership on Monologue Monday had surged 250% in just 2 months. Podcast downloads for DeVito After Dark topped 500,000, and social mentions of hashtag Dinner with Danny outpaced rival celebrity tours by a margin of 3-1. Yet the numbers only told half the story. Sentiment analysis revealed 97% positive reactions to his candid reflections on aging and loneliness, and philanthropic reports showed that over 2,000 senior citizens had received creative grants thanks to his foundation. These quantitative victories validated a simple principle: authenticity yields engagement, and vulnerability breeds devotion. Danny's orchestration of scarcity and intimacy reshaped how audiences perceive aging icons. By limiting in-person events to under 200 attendees, capping NFT drops at a few hundred tokens, and releasing podcast episodes behind invitation-only portals, he generated an irresistible FOMO that amplified each release. Simultaneously, he welcomed fans into his world through behind-the-scenes live streams, private Discord chats, and personalized sketches for superfans. This dual approach made every interaction feel precious, turning casual viewers into active participants in his unfolding narrative. As a result, ticket resale values for pop-up screenings soared, and waitlists for virtual and real-world gatherings stretched into the thousands. Looking ahead, Danny has teased further expansions of this model. He plans a limited edition graphic novel adapting his most memorable character monologues into illustrated form, with each issue including QR-linked audio commentaries. A spin-off web series featuring emerging actors performing his archived scripts, inspired by his mentorship workshops, will stream on a niche platform that rewards fan engagement with bonuses like virtual meet and greets. And in early 2025, he'll co-host a documentary special with Rhea Perlman, marking their first joint on-camera project since their amicable split. Behind the scenes, development is already underway for a feature-length neo-noir where DeVito both stars and directs, bringing his decades of character work full circle in a story about memory, redemption, and the power of second chances. Throughout this campaign, Danny's own evolution mirrored the broader strategic arc. He transformed from the solitary figure wandering echoing corridors into the connective tissue binding a global community of fans, creators, and beneficiaries. Once defined solely by his blockbuster cameos and sitcom one-liners, he emerged as a polymath who fuses performance, philanthropy, and innovative marketing into an inseparable whole. His most effective tool remained the same humble one that launched his career: storytelling. Whether he's revealing a childhood memory in a live stream, critiquing a draft screenplay in his home office, or sharing a private laugh with a theater workshop attendee, he invites us behind the curtain and asks us to share in both his humor and his heartache. As the final beats of this campaign reverberate, the story of Danny DeVito's 80th year stands as a blueprint for any legacy artist seeking relevance in an age of fleeting attention. By embracing every contradiction, comedy and sorrow, scarcity and accessibility, tradition and innovation, he crafted a narrative arc that reads like a masterclass in authentic engagement. He reminded us that no matter how bright the spotlight may burn, the true magic lies in the moments shared in its gentle glow. And as he raised his coffee mug during that first Monologue Monday, declaring, "Here's to the next punchline," we realized that this was not a farewell but a promise, that even at 80, Danny DeVito's rhythm remains unbroken, his story still unfolding, and his audience always ready for the next unforgettable beat.